As someone who's lived in Aberdeen their entire life, one thing I'm not going to miss when I leave town for college is the Moccasin Creek. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, the Moccasin Creek, or Mog as we Aberdonians so lovingly call it, is a creek that runs through most of the town. Now, while the vegetation and trees surrounding the creek are quite pretty, the water within the creek is not. Simply put, it's brown, murky, and smells terrible. Now, when I took a walk by the creek the other day, it made me realize that it's crucial that we begin examining strategies to properly promote conservation of our watersheds. And when I examined into this issue, I found that farmers and ranchers, the government, and we as individuals can all take action in order to promote healthy conservation of our watersheds. First, let's talk about what farmers and ranchers can do to promote proper conservation of our watersheds. According to an article from the Center for Urban Education about Sustainable Agriculture on August 15th of 2014, this article reported a plethora of strategies that farmers and ranchers can use to properly promote conservation. The most interesting I found of these was the idea of conservation tillage. Now, essentially, conservation tillage is either tilling less, tilling in more environmentally friendly manners, or not tilling at all in order to leave behind crop residue from the previous harvest. Now, by doing this, it actually helps the water in two ways. First, it helps directly conserve water because leaving the residue from the previous harvest actually reduces the evaporation of water at the surface level, which means that farmers don't have to use as much water to water their crops. Secondly, it also improves the quality of the water because leaving the crop residue in the ground actually helps open up the soil, which allows it to take in more water and thus reduces runoff because there's less water at the surface level to push the soil off into our watersheds. And as you know, the harmful pollutants in the soil can cause damage to these watersheds, so thus by leaving the residue, it does less damage. So clearly, through the use of conservation tilling, we see that farmers and ranchers have a very powerful tool at their hands to promote proper conservation of our watersheds. But secondly, we need to also discuss what the government can do to promote proper and healthy conservation of our watersheds. One problem that conservation is facing right now is that many farmers and ranchers will take their cattle to natural waterways in order to water them. According to an article from One Green Planet on October 10th of 2014, this can actually cause problems for the water because firstly, the cattle walking around the water can actually erode the stream bank and hurt the natural functions of the waterway, but furthermore, the manure left behind by the cows can actually seep into the waterway and harm it as well. Fortunately, the government has a very powerful tool in its hands in order to help combat this in the name of water development grants. An excellent example of what this might look like is the Prairie Coteau Water Development Grant that takes place in about 15 counties to the east part of our state. Essentially, what this water development grant does is provide funding to farmers and ranchers so that they can pipeline clean water to a separate location away from these natural waterways to water their cattle. And this is beneficial not only for the environment because not only now do the farmers and ranchers not have to go to the natural waterway to feed their cattle, but it's also beneficial for the farmers as well because watering cattle from clean water sources actually helps the cattle gain weight faster. And this way the farmer does not have to worry about nitrate poisoning, which can be a concerning issue for the farmer. So thus, through the use of water development grants and potentially expanding this grant across the entirety of the state, the government has a very powerful way to promote proper conservation of our watersheds. But finally, we need to talk about what we as individuals can do to promote healthy conservation of our watersheds. Now, one of the most direct things that absolutely everyone can do to promote proper conservation is simply use less water. Whether it be taking a shorter shower, fixing that leaky pipe, or turning off the sink when it's not in use, we can all practice the most direct form of conservation possible. Furthermore, we must also be concerned about what sorts of things we're putting in the water. According to an article from the Nature Conservancy, an action as small as pouring a household cleaner down the drain of your sink can actually cause permanent damage to the water. Because of this, you can only imagine how much damage actions such as driving our cars around every day, which can leave emissions that eventually seep into the water, can do. Because of this, it's crucial that we begin examining what exactly we're putting in the water and be more careful about what we are putting in the water, and also work to use less water in the first place as well. Now, the other day, when I took a walk by the Moccasin Creek, I saw that the creek is essentially in disrepair, and while it's unfortunate that the quality of the water is very poor there, it's brown, murky, and smells terrible. If we begin to take steps towards conserving our watersheds, maybe one day we'll see a moccasin creek that is shining, sparkly, and new. If farmers and ranchers, the government, and we as individuals all take action, hopefully we can make this a reality. Okay, thank you.